Hi crafty friends, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be making this fabulous card using a bunch of Altenew products for the monthly card hop theme of flower power. So to begin, I'm using this Build a Flower Carnation stamp set from Altenew. I love their layering stamp sets because not only do they come with very clear packaging, but they also have fabulous ideas and projects included. I'm bringing out my stamp wheel and placing a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 piece of Neenah Classic Crest Solar White cardstock into the corner. I'm showing you here how I like to align the hole that comes in the top piece with the middle of the top area of the stamp wheel, and that's how I align my plate every time when I go to stamp. You simply flip it over and add your ink. Here I'm using a newer product from Altenew, which is one of their conditioning erasers that you can use on your photopolymer stamps to remove the oils that happen from the manufacturing process. After checking to see that this particular layering stamp had 4 different colors, I selected a trio of inks from Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated Inks, and then added a lighter pink from a different trio. Bubblegum is the color here that I'm stamping that doesn't go with the trio, but I think that it makes a great base layer. When I was looking at these pinks, I just wanted to make sure that I was using one that had cooler tones, since the trio of inks that I was using had more of a blue tone as opposed to a warmer tone in the red family. I'm stamping twice, as I do most of my stamping, just to make sure I get a nice saturated image that's solid across the entire surface. I'm pressing down in all spots to make sure that I get the image nice and fully saturated. And I've left this in the video, but you're going to see me make a mistake right here. Can you spot what it is? Well, if you guessed it, it was me leaving that little gap in between the paper and the bottom of the platform. You'll see when I get to the next layer that my layers don't line up, and that's when I realize the mistake that I've made. In between stamping, I bring in my Gina K Tidy Towel to clean off any of the remaining ink colors from the stamp image, and then I put it back on the sheet. I love the Altenew packaging because it shows you which parts of the stamp to line up and pay attention to when you're trying to get your layers perfect. I always consult the packaging, as you'll see, before each step of the layering process. So now I'm bringing in the second layer of the carnation flower, and I'm using just my finger here to show you that you can accomplish the same result using your finger or the Altenew conditioning eraser. Coming in with the color carnation and then stamping this image right on top of the first layer of ink. This layer actually covers a lot of surface area, which I didn't realize, but look at how much detail is added just with a single layer. Now, as I mentioned before, I slide this cardstock all the way into the corner here, and once I stamp on the second layer using the carnation ink, which is when you'll see me realize that I've made a mistake. But I left this part in the video, as you'll see, going through each layer so that I can show you at the end that even if your layers don't line up perfectly, you'll end up with an image that's still really great and absolutely usable. So I flip it around here, and it's time to move on to the third layer. I line it up again using the packaging off camera, and then bring in my top plate to collect the stamp, condition it with my finger, and then come up with peony. I just love watching these layering stamps come to life as you add each layer of additional color. I am obsessed with Altenew's layering flower stamps because they give you flowers that look like a picture that was just taken of something alive in your garden. They literally look so real, and I cannot get over it every time I use one of these sets. So pushing down the ink here and then coming in with the fourth and final layer of the carnation flower. I love how the ruffles really pop off the page here. This one I had a little trouble lining up, so again, I just consulted the packaging with the colors showing where you should pay attention to lining up the pieces. One tip I have for lining up layering stamps is to look through the stamp and look at the surface that's contact with your paper and see if there's any white in that area. If the part that's in contact with the paper underneath has white showing through, then that means that it's likely not lined up with the layer underneath. So you're trying to get all of that white eliminated right at the surface where it's touching. So here You see the completed flower that's lined up perfectly as compared with the one with a base layer that's a little bit off. But they still both look fabulous, and I end up cutting them both out. I don't use both because I didn't have room on my card, but I am definitely saving the second one for another project in the future. Now I'm moving on to the leaves. This set has 2 separate leaves, which I'm sitting down the base layer of both here. Since I'm going to use the same colors for each set of leaves, I can stamp them both at the same time. There you saw one of the things that can happen if you have a stamp that has a large surface area. It can sometimes adhere to the paper before you've cleaned off those oils from manufacturing. So I just make sure that I'm careful when I'm picking it up so that my paper doesn't move. I'm starting this layer with the cabbage color, which is one of the newer positively saturated inks from Simon Says Stamp. And then I'm actually coming in with the second 2 of the trio for a second set of leaves. So this next base layer is going to be stamped using artichoke ink. I can switch this around and have a little bit different colored leaves, but know that they're still going to coordinate because each leaf only uses 2 different colors. So with a set of 3 inks, like are in the Simon Says Stamp positively saturated trios, I can use the lightest 2 for the first set of leaves and then the darkest 2 for the second set of leaves. So that's what I'm doing here. Another thing that I love about these inks is the fact that they contain a smoothing agent and they really smooth out as they dry. So even if you get inconsistencies in your stamping, the final dried image is going to look fantastic. I haven't found that to be the case with all dye inks, and so I highly recommend the Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated line. They have great colors, super vibrant, super pigmented, and they level out, making you look like an expert stamper. Here we come in with the second layer of these leaf images. Again, I'm using artichoke for this layer, and as I flip it around, we already have artichoke stamped down, and we're going to come in with kale. I think that this is going to look really great for a little variety on the card while still looking cohesive. After I'm finished with the stamping, I'm going to cut these out using the dies off screen and have my elements ready to go on the card. After I have my focal images done, I'm bringing in the Altenew Sparkled Frame, which is a fantastic new die, which has these little flat elements where you can add embellishments and make the frame really look 3D. I used my Anna Griffin Impress machine off camera and used some matte gold cardstock from Simon Says Stamp to cut out the frame that will serve as the background for my focal image. This looks absolutely fantastic in matte gold. Off screen, I layered this with another white die cut for some extra dimension. I'm bringing in a panel that I've hot foiled previously, just had sitting on my desk in the Altenew Petal Harmony. This is a beautiful die, and I've used this opal foil that's really subtle, but it catches the light and adds incredible sparkle. I had the idea to mat it behind the frame so that even with the frame sitting on a white card base, the frame looks like it has a background with some extra texture and sparkle. I didn't have an oval die that perfectly matched the shape of the oval frame, so I'm using just a pencil here to go around the frame once it's lined up where I would like it on the pattern, marking in between the various layers of the die cut in the shape of an oval so that I have some kind of shape that I can cut out with scissors. I'm going to bring in some scissors from Simon Says Stamp and just fussy cut around this shape. The edge is going to be hidden behind the actual frame die cut, so it doesn't need to be perfect. I just wanted to make sure that I have enough coverage so that it covers the entire center background area, but is close enough that it doesn't show through on the delicate parts on the decorative exterior of the oval frame. Once I've had it cut out, I place it behind the frame and I'm thrilled with the results. I come in using some Barely Arts glue, just very ever so slightly around the edge of the back of the frame so that I have a surface that will connect the background with the frame die cut. So after gluing those together, it's time to start arranging. I bring in a card base that I have already pre-made. It's a Nina Classic Crest Solar White 110 pound 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And you can see how the Altenew frame die fits perfectly on that size card. So I set it down here and I'm gonna just first start by fiddling around with my pieces. I have 2 of these carnation flowers stamped, so I'm going to see if I like how 2 of them look on the card. I left this in here to show you that sometimes arranging floral pieces or really any type of dies and figuring out the arrangement on your card can be one of the more time-consuming but fun and rewarding processes. I decided that just 1 flower is perfect for this size card, especially with the frame. And then I'm showing how my greenery will kind of slide in here to set off to each side. And then I have these 2 little leaves, add a little color variety by doing 1 on each side, and I end up being super happy with this arrangement. Now, I didn't use so many pieces that I need to bring in press and seal to hold them in place, so I just kind of slide them off to the side once I'm happy with how this arrangement looks. But before I do that, I want to make sure that the sentiment I had in mind fits in the space. I think it's going to work perfectly as I was looking to make a Mother's Day card, so I bring in the Better Pressed Happy Mother's Day sentiment from Spellbinders, and it looks great. So I slide things off, add some Altenew foam tape to the back of the frame die cut, and then after adding some Barely Arts glue to give me a little bit of wiggle room, I place it right down in the center of my card base. I love having the glue over top of the foam tape so that I have a little bit of wiggle room to make sure it's exactly aligned like I want. With this frame die, since you have a top and a bottom and a side detail on both, I wanted to make sure that it was perfectly straight, especially with that patterned glimmer piece underneath. I bring in the Share Handmade Kindness block to weight it down, and then I move right along. Next, I'm going to use some foam dots to pop up the carnation flower. I do it a little off center here. I think on my original arrangement I had a little bit more center, but this ends up working out great. I wanted to pop it up the highest and then slide these greenery leaves back underneath it since I want the flower to be the focal image. Unfortunately, I lost a bit of footage here, so you don't get to see the entire process of me connecting all of the greenery into the arrangement, but you can see here that once you have foam tape, it really helps to trim some of your greenery so that you don't have to, move things around too much. They just fit in the edge perfectly and you hide the cut portion. It also allowed me, as you can see here, to keep some of the little flowers and add more greenery to make the arrangement more lush and full. So I bring in a couple of different embellishments to try out here, and I end up loving these Trinity Stamps golden baubles, gorgeous golden baubles, because there's a variety of sizes that fit perfectly on these flat surfaces on the frame die cut. But also, I was thinking that I might want to use matte baubles, but actually these are the full shine from Trinity Stamps, and I think that they look great as an accent piece on the matte gold frame. I really love that the frame die cut has these little flat areas where you know that embellishments will add to the dimension of the frame, but also they hold the baubles down so that I know that they won't slip around when I mail this. I also like that they're different sizes, so it really adds to the authenticity and genuine look of the frame. So I add a dot of Barely Arts glue to each embellishment area and then place it down. Here I used some reverse tweezers from Spellbinders and then a Trinity Stamp placing tool to clean some of the excess glue from the edge of the embellishment that I placed down. I kind of put too much glue and it squished out the side, but that little fine tip really can help you get in there without messing up the placement of your embellishment. So I finish embellishing by placing them all around the frame and all of the exposed flat areas. I'd really recommend saving this for last if you're going to add embellishments to the frame, since you won't need embellishments under the area where the focal floral image lays. And then this is my finished card project. I'm super thrilled with how this came out, and I just know that my mom is going to love to receive this on Mother's Day. Thank you so much for joining me today. This video is part of a video hop hosted by Valley Oak Paper, and I encourage you to hop along to the other creators in my description box below. Thank you so much for joining me today, and have a fantastic rest of your week.